Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
It's the It's Got Star Trek podcast.
He attacked you because you are an Earthling, Captain, even as was McCoy.
But how did he survive the plague?
He, like the others who remain here, was away at the time. They returned to their planet to find that their families had succumbed to the plague. He and a few others, senseless in their grief, chose to live here in desolation. You see, Captain, there were no actual survivors.
You are wrong. There was a survivor.
All right.
I can't just start talking to Dan about random stuff.
I mean, you can.
You can do whatever you want.
I can, but then you'll tell me to stop.
Yeah, there would be consequences.
There will be consequences. Listen, man, we've done over 200 of these.
I kind of want to see what the consequences are. It sounds so sinister and awesome.
I would kind of too.
Sinister and awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and get started.
No.
No. Yeah, yes.
Wait a minute.
No.
Yes.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I go.
All right. Yes, we will get started.
Lame.
This. Okay.
Lame.
Yes, we'll get to that. Hold your horses. Okay.
Lame.
Hello and welcome. Hello, this is the It's Got Star Trek podcast.
What? It's what?
Welcome.
Wait, what is it?
It is the It's Got Star Trek podcast.
I have been tricked.
You have not. You are a familiar face on these particular airwaves.
Airwaves? Did you say
Yes,
airwaves?
airwaves. Yes.
We're not on the airwaves.
I know it's a bit anachronistic, but it makes
It's just incorrect.
There's flavor. It's colorful flavor.
It's incorrect. There are no airs or waves.
So what? We're on like the digital doop dops.
Yeah, that would be more accurate than saying airwaves.
Well, can you give me an alternative? Give me a modern alternative that has the same flavor as saying like we're on the air. We're on the
Dan's trying to
airwaves.
steal magic from the world.
The digital airwaves.
We're flipping binary.
All right, so just imagine us. We're like the symbol of the floppy disk symbol that represents saving, right? That's us.
We're flipping. We're flipping binaries.
We're choosing. Is it a 0? Is it a 1?
Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
I'm choosing over and over again.
We have this whole plan to just get going. We're already drifting off course.
We're shooting impulses.
All right. This is episode 227 of the It's Got Star Trek podcast. We welcome you to the It's Got Star Trek podcast.
Welcome.
We are recording the It's Got Star Trek podcast in the hope that you will enjoy the It's Got Star Trek podcast.
Well,
I think it was a somewhat sincere laugh out of Jesse on that one.
I just want to say real quick. Last week we got 2 of our 4 calls made the "don't interrupt me" joke, meaning they called up and in the middle of their recorded voice message they're like, "Don't interrupt, guys."
That was
like,
pretty good.
It's like sort of predicting the fact that we were going to interrupt. You think it's a bad sign that we had 2 of those calls of people playing that joke? Meaning,
No, I think it's a good sign.
No, I think it's good that we have such astute listeners. Listeners who pay attention.
Yes.
Right. But I think it's a bad sign that we do it that much. That it's become a common joke. That would tell me that maybe we shouldn't do that so much.
I think you're overthinking it. It's podcast gossamer.
I'm making an effort not to interrupt.
Oh, wow. Now I feel weird. This feels weird. Are you waiting for me to say your turn to talk, Patrick?
Yes.
That's not how it works.
You could give me a hand signal?
No. You know how conversations work.
Do you yield your time to Patrick?
You know how social cues work.
Sometimes. Yeah, so hello. It's Got Star Trek.
So Jesse's going to answer it. Patrick's just going to be glib and move on.
I thought we were doing a podcast.
Well, I asked a question.
I can't recall. What was the question? Oh, no. I think it's fine.
Well, at least you gave an answer.
I do. I think it's fine.
I don't.
Okay, let me see where we are in my notes. Episode 227, we did that. We don't have any news-em-ups, mail-em-ups, or any of that business this week, so we can get right into our discussion of these 2 episodes of Star Trek The Animated Series. The episodes in question are the anti-penultimate episode of the 2nd season, Albatross, and the penultimate episode of the 2nd season, How Sharper Than a Serpent's Tooth.
Yes.
So these are what we will be discussing today.
That name on that second one's kind of a mouthful.
It is. It's hilarious.
Star Trek WTF.
It was difficult to wrestle it into our graphic design template for our marketing materials. But why don't we go ahead and get started with Albatross?
I go.
Okay, so this is a silly episode. I think this was not to,
really silly.
Yeah, I mean,
it just didn't make a ton of sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's the most kids show logic, I think, of the whole series in terms of not being any real logic.
Yeah, it kept feeling like it was going to go in a certain logical direction, and then it would just kind of not go there. Like this whole Like, what was it? McCoy was accused of murder because he fucked up some he thinks he fucked up some inoculations. Well, first of all, they're accusing him of murder. Shouldn't he be accused of manslaughter or something?
So I think just to clarify, what we're doing here is a parse 'em up. We're parsing through the plot because it doesn't make sense. So before we discuss the rest of the episode, I do think it helps to parse out the plot, exactly what they meant, because I'm not clear on it. And I'm wondering if either of you are more clear, or if perhaps together the 3 of us can cobble together some sort of sensible thing here. So McCoy, 19 years prior, visits a planet in this system, not the main one. He visits Dramian 2?
Ah, yes.
Dramia 2.
Dramia 2.
Yes.
And he
As in, save the Dramia for your mamia.
okay, all right. He administers vaccines,
right,
or inoculations. I forget if they specified or if they use them interchangeably.
And then the Dramians,
what about the vitamins?
And then the Dramians accuse him of it's sort of analogous to people accusing what are those things people give that they say what's the word vaccine, yes.
Yes, that's what we just mentioned.
Yeah, right. No, but it's I know it's analogous to how some
COVID vaccine.
It's analogous to how people say, like, oh, vaccines give you autism or whatever.
Which they do not.
They do not. But like the episode saying
fraudulent paper.
But that's what they were going by. What I got gathered from it is the Dramians were like, you gave these inoculations and they caused the plague.
Yes.
Much like vaccines cause autism, which they don't.
Yes.
Which it didn't in this episode either.
No, there was a situation where there was a coincidence. Okay, this is again where it's getting confusing because I'm not sure exactly what they're trying to say here.
They were saying plague.
McCoy does the inoculation. Shortly afterward,
that was weird too.
Presumably after McCoy and everybody's left, this plague hits. They associate it with the inoculations. Now, one thing I'm confused about is they keep referring to McCoy. I don't imagine you've got one person just sort of gallivanting around.
Giving inoculations to everybody.
Yeah, so
there'd have to be a team of those.
Exactly. You'd assume McCoy was part of a team. Now, I did hear one criticism of this.
Starfleet does it.
Well, one criticism of the lore of this episode is a lot of people said that McCoy, 19 years previously, would not have been in Starfleet because he did not join Starfleet until after his divorce. And they're like, so that way it doesn't make sense. But I don't think they
Your treachery is transparent, Vulcan.
I don't think they specify that it's Starfleet. McCoy was a doctor the whole time, so he could have been just doctoring. Maybe he was just doing some doctor fun, like Dr. Crusher, going around doctoring.
Seems like they would have doctors just going around to help people.
But that part I'm fine
Decidedly.
with. I'm fine with that part. But McCoy doesn't seem to have any awareness that a terrible plague hit after he left.
And you change color.
Yeah,
this is some kind of joke.
Color again.
Yeah, we'll get to the color stuff because that's got its own bit of hilarity associated with it.
So
that far, I get that McCoy in the past inoculations, and then coincidentally plague hits,
and then it's unlikely that he hadn't heard that this had happened. It's also like Starfleet. the Dramians had an order from an arrest order, like that was approved by Starfleet or the Federation or Starfleet or whatever. Like, wouldn't it have been the Federation or Starfleet that sent them to the planet to give the inoculations? Wouldn't they have at least approved of it?
Right.
Like maybe, but even still,
I mean, in order to go to a different planet to give inoculations, you'd have to go through the Federation or something.
One would hope, but you could say, okay, whatever.
So they would be partly responsible.
I'm still confused why Starfleet would knowingly send the Enterprise with McCoy if they knew ahead of time McCoy was going to be arrested. So presumably they
because they approved of the order to arrest him, so they were like, it's okay.
I know, but I'm saying this is confusing because it's
Situation
like,
normal.
Would the Federation do that? Not that they would want to hide him from prosecution necessarily, but why would they spring it on him after they've already gone? Because remember, at the beginning of this episode, they're winding up their mission there. Kirk and co. have gone to the main planet, Dramia 1 or whatever, Dramia Prime, and they've done some work. We're not 100% clear what they've done, but they've been doing some good works down there. And it's at the end of that they, right before they're about to leave, that they arrest McCoy.
And then not only that, they're like about to leave, and the Dramian's like, if you would be so kind, Captain, just like, hang back, I just want to
kidnap one of your motherfuckers.
Right. And he's like, we have an arrest warrant for your arrest. Like, that was a misdirect.
So
they fucked them up.
My headcanon, which I think fits pretty well, but again, it's not there in the text. You just have to sort of guess this. My headcanon is they arrive for the mission, they're doing the work, somebody notices McCoy and is like, hey, it's that piece of shit.
I have been tricked.
Which again is confusing given, like, was it just McCoy or was it a bunch of people? I wish they had clarified, like, McCoy was part of this or something. If they said it, I missed it. And I watched this episode a couple times. It really seems like McCoy by himself or is leading a team or whatever. It's just, there's not enough information there. Yeah, okay, then they arrest him.
Lame.
And then they're going to put him on a speedy trial that we're meant...
Dramian justice is swift.
Okay, but before we go to the trial, I know you don't agree with this, Patrick, but like, I want to reiterate my confusion over the fact that it was Starfleet or I'm going to just say the Federation. Yeah. It was the Federation that approved, that would have had to approve these inoculations in order for them to go on a different planet. And now they approve the inoculations, but now they also sign the arrest warrant. So it's like, shouldn't they be held partly responsible for this?
I just personally think that's a perfectly reasonable assumption. But I wouldn't take it too strongly because, like I said, maybe McCoy was not. In fact,
I mean, I don't know why.
According to canon, McCoy was not in Starfleet at this time.
Yeah, but I don't know why.
So I could see him being a part of a different group.
I don't know why you wouldn't take that.
Because the Federation doesn't have jurisdiction over everything.
I don't know why you wouldn't take that seriously, but you do take seriously the fact about like the Federation not telling McCoy beforehand. You could write that one off as well.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I am agreeing with you. What I'm not agreeing with is the strength of your assumption because the Federation doesn't have jurisdiction over everything.
Look, I'm saying the strength of my assumption though versus the strength of your assumption.
I don't know exactly which assumption of mine you're talking about.
I just said it.
But clearly I'm not following it. So can you explain it?
Okay, open your ears. I'll open my mouth.
Wait. Hey.
Oh no, Demos.
That's for after the podcast.
Oh. I go.
No, your assertion that you can't understand how McCoy wasn't warned by the Federation that he was going to get arrested. You were like, and I'm saying like, well, that assumption you made, I don't see how yours is any stronger than mine.
Well, let me provide a response because that's understandable because I haven't provided really any explanation of that. My justification for that, and again, I'm not going to assume it because this is the animated series land where everything's fucking crazy, especially in this particular episode. But if we're trying to wrestle some sense out of this, traditionally speaking, particularly in this TAS era, what Starfleet has done in the past is they might hand somebody over. You know, they might hand over a Kirk or whatever to a tribunal or whatever.
Who is that?
They have done that.
But usually it's through some process, or they're like, "Well, sorry, we have to do this, Dr. McCoy, but you know that's the deal." Or
part of a larger
evidences,
scheme.
or we have an alliance with these people, or you know, there's some context that's provided, and in fact, usually that context is provided to demonstrate how advanced and peaceful the Federation is and how intelligent they are to want to negotiate rather than do shoot-em-ups all the time, right?
Shoot-em-ups.
You mean kangaroo court?
And that's not what happens here. It does seem like somebody, while McCoy was working on the planet, somebody recognized him or something. He's like, I don't like that dude. called up their leaders. Their leaders called up the Federation, and Federation was like, oh, okay. And then didn't tell Kirk, didn't tell McCoy. I guess if they're trying to surprise arrest them, but I don't know. It just doesn't follow the normal format that I'm used to.
Well,
but then nothing does in this episode.
It's the Enterprise. It's the most important ship.
But okay, can you at least?
Why are they dissing the?
Don't you think at least though that the Federation you would have to go through the Federation in order to give somebody on another planet in order to go?
I don't understand it's the bureaucratic setup that would necessarily require.
Because it's the National Federation of National Federation. It was the Federation of Planets.
This planet's not in the Federation, as far as we know. They're just some aliens.
But you don't just like approach to other planets without first conferring with like the Federation of Planets that like.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, because they are responsible for the ones that make first contact and do all this shit.
Look,
are you saying they're obviously on a mission from the Federation?
You're taking that assumption.
You're just saying they randomly landed on a random planet and just gave out inoculations without the Federation knowing about it.
Yeah, because that's what happens. People do that in real life. Like if you're talking, if the analogy is planets to countries,
it's not though.
There are people who run missions, who build houses, who do medical care, who do inoculations that have no connection to their government.
I don't think the analogy between
Doctors
those.
If they're invited by the local government,
I don't think the
you don't need permission from the State Department to volunteer to be a doctor overseas necessarily, right?
I was saying that I don't think it is analogous to countries. It's much easier to get to a different country than it is another fucking planet.
Okay, I just don't see why because it sort of boggles my mind that you can't imagine that all the people roving around the fucking galaxy in Star Trek, not in real life. But I just
don't see how you could give inoculations to a whole planet without like first getting the Federation involved. It just doesn't make sense to me because
what if you're in Klingon territory? What if you're in Cardassian territory? What if you're in Romulan territory?
The Federation is responsible for exactly things like that.
Yeah, but not outside of their territory. You can't give permission outside of your territory.
You make first contact. That's how you use like the Enterprise but
you're not part of the Federation.
Or if it's the case of second contact, it's the Cerritos.
I'm partly surprised that you would even accept that the Federation would have de facto jurisdiction over anybody they happen to meet without any sort of formal.
From Earth.
What kind of Federation?
Yeah, I don't think any random Earthling is going to go to another planet without going through the Federation of Planets.
The Doctor likes doctoring.
It's all regulated.
I don't think it is. But
I do.
Doctor's gonna doctor.
Doctors is gonna doctor. What I will say.
Your treachery is transparent, Vulcan.
It's
another thing that Vulcans are immune to. Another disease.
Yes, of course. Conveniently.
One more disease.
Conveniently.
Green-blooded.
Although every now and then there's something that only Vulcans get, then it's extra hilarious.
Yeah, but right, and yeah, I mean, it wasn't like a hint at the plot or any kind of foreshadowing at all. Like that, like they're like, oh, and Vulcans are immune. And it's like, I mean, I guess you could be like, oh, it's just a chance for Spock to. Jesus. I was going to say Scotch to grab.
Scotch to grab.
Spock to brag. That's hard to say. Spock to brag.
Spock generally takes over in TAS.
Yeah.
He usually comes out as like takes charge in some situations.
It's like Spock and Scotty a lot.
Like
and Uhura, actually.
What I was trying to say is the only other reason I could think that they would bring up like, oh, by the way, Vulcans are immune is to give Spock a chance to brag.
Yeah.
But I don't think they did. They were just straight up. I mean, they were.
But what was interesting is that now I didn't even think about this until just now. But his being immune had very little effect on the plot. Because
I guess it did. It allowed him to keep control of the Enterprise.
A little bit, yeah.
Do you notice both these episodes?
But not as much,
it was an Albatross itself.
Not as much as other episodes.
Both these episodes, Spock had to take control of the Enterprise.
Yeah, and as Jesse noted, it's a frequent occurrence in TAS.
Keeps happening.
And they always use that.
Like,
he's always at his science station, not in the captain's chair because
alien.
They didn't animate him in the captain's chair enough, so he's he's always looking at the screen. It doesn't matter who he's talking to.
Right.
It's like, why is he looking at the view screen?
Yeah.
Who is that?
But yes,
what's he looking at?
As silly as this episode is, I am very impressed with these aliens. They're super weird, funky aliens.
Yeah, they're pretty weird.
TAS was...
I go.
Oh, yeah.
TAS had a lot of flexibility. They did a lot of creative things.
Imaginative aliens.
Yeah, and so they have a lot of imaginative
Classic
aliens on TAS, but these were like especially weird with their curled fingers.
They had some squiggle fingers, like
super squiggle
like
fingers.
They were supposed to be underwater creatures of some kind.
Did you notice also that they all had different head shapes?
No, I didn't know
I
that.
really dug that.
Yeah, that's right.
I was thinking, like, watching these guys, I was like, wouldn't it be awesome to see these in...
It's like some Dr. Seuss shit.
It would be awesome.
If you would be so kind.
It would be awesome to see these guys in live action, because they would either be hilarious or horrifying.
Oh man,
It was horrifying.
Depending on which direction the makeup artists and prop masters decided to go.
Yeah,
I'd kind of be into seeing some Germanians again.
I couldn't figure out what was going on with their fingers. I feel like they must have been from the water somehow, but there wasn't a lot of water on that planet that we saw.
TAS is pretty.
I mean, there was some
consistent with like the imaginative aliens and like sort of cool visuals. Mm-hmm. Even if sometimes the episode is goofy.
It's usually pretty goofy.
There's usually like just some ridiculous shit, some fucked up mythology, whatever the fuck. But it's usually cool visuals and weird aliens.
It's
like
fucking
creative.
It's kind of trippy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of trippy. It's the 70s. Everybody's smoking weed.
Everyone's fucking doing Quaaludes and Black Betty.
This Demos guy had like
Betty.
a really like distinct voice.
I demand that you report to the Federation now.
It was like Lou
Scheimer?
Scheimer.
And you are not in authority to conduct an investigation in our star system.
That's just the head of Filmation, right?
Then
I don't know.
will proceed to your star
is that
base
who he
and
is?
report your act.
Yeah, he's the head of Filmation.
Is that why he sounds like he's not an actor and it's just some
Right,
guy who
yeah.
showed up and is like, hey, can I give this a try?
It's
The distinction here is between the world of the living and the world of the walking dead.
World of the Walking Dead.
I
They
have my
returned to their planet to find that their
planet.
families had succumbed to the plague.
their families
Their
had succumbed to the plague.
Wait, I want to play this one. Wait, this one again.
And you are not in authority to conduct an investigation in our star system.
Star system.
Then
this guy
I
some
will
rotisserie
proceed to
chicken.
your star base and report your act.
What was that?
It's like the rotisserie.
Get some guys-
it's a rotisserie
some
chicken.
avocado.
I would like the rotisserie chicken, please.
In my
French
notes,
fries.
I have Lou Scheimer seems to be the non-James Doohan voice.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he played the other Dramian people. He played Cole Ty.
He played he played everyone else other than the main people.
James Dillon
Oh,
usually
no,
does all the
Demos.
voices. So.
Oh yeah, so Cole Ty. Cole Ty was like
A man who saves does not also kill,
Can we-
Commander.
which is not.
Can we interrogate that ridiculous statement?
That is terribly inaccurate.
It is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're on the same page.
Yeah,
here,
okay,
Dan.
we can't get on that one.
We're both agreeing. That was one of the most absurd statements. It's like, hey, I'm going to pretend to be logical, but I'm secretly not being
right.
logical. I'm just saying some total bullshit.
Let's pretend for a second that if you do nice things for people, you aren't also capable of
It's
doing
sort of
mean
counter
things.
to human nature.
Yeah. Let's pretend for a minute that if you do one thing, you can't do the other, which is not true. Just because
You might do the nice things to cover up the mean things
Let's
you do.
say you're 100% nice and only do nice things all day long. That doesn't mean you can't accidentally kill someone, you know? So there's like, you can either do it accidentally, but it doesn't even have to go that far because it doesn't make sense to say that people like aren't capable of doing good and bad things.
It's you might argue in a probabilistic sense.
Probabilistic.
You might say, I think Jesse was getting at this, that sure, if somebody tends to be like nice, there's a good chance they're not going out of their way to harm other people. But then, Dan, you posited a situation in which you're 100% nice or 100% of the time. And philosophically, I think that's problematic because I think being nice in certain contexts might mean that you're kind of being mean in another way, even if you don't intend it.
It's oxymoronic.
Yeah, it's oxymoronic.
Oxymoronic, supersonic.
It's a problematic thing, and it was.
I should freestyle right now. No one will be made uncomfortable by that.
If you
Not at all.
freestyle,
If I freestyled
Jesse,
right now.
that's you and I. We're
No,
gonna
I'm
do this
not
whole non-interrupting
I'm
thing.
not gonna freestyle.
I will
No,
let
we'll give Dan 3 minutes.
Let you have your time. to
3
speak,
minutes
sir.
of freestyle time.
I have been tricked.
Your treachery is transparent, Vulcan.
I was just thinking like oxymoronic rhymes with supersonic, and then I could like be all like boo boo doo doo doo, and then everyone could be like stop it.
No, I think talking about freestyling is almost as good as actually freestyling. Do you have any other rhymes that would come up after oxymoronic, supersonic?
Chronic.
Hooked on phonic, chronic,
Phonic.
hook on phonic, chronic. Yeah, something about chronic.
Puffing on the chronic. On the chronic.
Gin and tonic.
Colonic.
Laconic.
Laconic.
Ionic. iambic pentameter.
Dramia.
Zombie-tronic.
Dramia 2.
This guy's trying to get us back on topic.
Dramia 2
You see that,
what?
Dan? You see what he's doing there?
Oh.
See what Jesse's doing there?
Dramia 2 what?
Were they called the Dramians because they were all like dramatic? Because they
Save
were all
the
like,
Dramia for your mamia.
I still don't know what that means.
It doesn't have to mean anything.
Okay, so
this guy's freestyling. You guys are freestyling.
Okay.
Freestyling all over your ass.
Okay.
Okay.
But also to the other point, of this statement.
A man who saves does not also kill,
If
Commander.
we're also applying it directly to this episode, the implication is McCoy saves, therefore he can't kill. But even McCoy was like, shit, did I accidentally kill someone? Like, he was wondering that same question in the episode. So this is inconsistent with what was said earlier in the episode, because McCoy is worried that he accidentally killed someone. And like I said, they're getting him for murder. They should get him for manslaughter. Of course, it is other planet laws, but still, it's like, you don't think he just came to the planet and just fucking murdered everybody. Like, that was his intention. And how it ended up, I thought it was going to be some long process of like, the Dramians would have something happen to him and there'd be something proving like why it didn't work. I thought it would be a little bit more intense, but really it was just a coincidence in the end. Yeah. In the end, it just so happened that the Aurora, rotisserie Aurora was
responsible for the plague.
That's what was giving people the plague and making people change colors, which I don't even know why they bothered with the changing colors, because somehow the color changing.
It's a cartoon, baby.
And what was the order? What was the order of the color changing?
It was blue, green, red, which is the opposite of red. RG.
You're blue.
Captain,
You're blue.
Dan hit it too. I was wondering if you would have that. But you cut it differently than I did. Let's see, how did that? Did you go to the whole thing? Yeah. Yeah, see, I figured I figured if you were gonna cut it, you would cut it to the whole till the musical phrase was completed. I cut it early, so if you listen to mine here.
What year did that song come out?
Huh?
It's an old song. Right? That blues song. It's from the 90s, right?
See, I cut it there, and I felt guilty cutting it there because the musical phrase had not yet resolved. It's
yes.
The French.
That's what I thought. Do you know what that is?
Wait, did you play that again?
No, you play yours again.
Like Orson Welles.
Yes.
The French.
Do you remember that's when Orson Welles is drunk?
Oh yeah,
trying to do the ad for the champagne. I'll put the link in the in the show notes. If you haven't seen the commercial, where it's an outtake for a commercial for Palmaison champagne, sparkling wine, and Orson Welles is so hammered that he can't get through the commercial.
Yeah.
I recently learned that while they are outtakes, they knew they weren't going to get the commercial done that day. He was too hammered, but for insurance purposes, they needed to record some film so they could send it to the insurance company and be like, you got to fucking pay us for today, because this jackass was 3 sheets to the wind.
Bitch.
But it's a great video. Link in the comments.
So, by the way, blue, green, red, it's the opposite of RGB. It was all the colors of the digital spectrum.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well.
But, anyways.
Not just digital.
Well, whatever. You know what I'm saying.
That's what my eyes see.
You got your tube TVs. They got the
Yeah.
RGBs.
Okay, yeah. We all think in digital now.
All right, Mr. Semantic.
The only people who use tube TVs are like playing Nintendo or something.
Are you trying to take the magic out of the world again?
Yes, but he's not getting rid of it. He's putting it in his pocket.
Oh no!
Dan, you need to get to what you were saying. But anyway, yeah. When Kirk was saying, yes, it immediately made me think of that because it was such a weird. There's a lot of weird.
Decidedly non-lethal, however.
Oh, there's this one part where Spock's like,
decidedly non-lethal, however.
And then Scotty's like,
You're sure it's safe, Captain?
And then he goes,
decidedly. Yeah. There's a difference, Captain.
I didn't get that at first because when he said when he was like
Decidedly.
because when Scotty was like, "You sure it's safe?" and then Kirk's like,
Absolutely.
and Spock's like,
Decidedly, there's a difference, Captain.
and I was like, I don't remember the captain saying decidedly earlier, but he didn't. Spock said it.
Yeah.
Spock goes.
Decidedly non-lethal, however. Decidedly, there's a difference, Captain.
Anyways,
As opposed to absolutely.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Ah, yes.
Anyway,
Absolutely.
You were making
Okay.
some other very cogent point.
okay, so the whole color changing thing was somehow confusing their computers, and they weren't clear as to like
Okay.
how it was confusing their computers. Did they even need the RGB thing, the color changing thing? Because it was the
And what kind of computers do they
because
have?
the plant it was the Aurora that was causing the plague. The Aurora is causing the plague, but like.
We're back to parse them ups because this is the other part that I did not understand. This didn't make any sense to me.
But it also changes people's color. But what did the color changing? How did that further the plot at all? They
Their
were just
computer runs on like magnetic tape.
They said the
Processing, working.
they said that the color changing was like confusing the computer. It didn't seem to further the plot except for the part that's where they said it confused the computer. My thinking is that they just wanted to throw it in because it looked cool, and they didn't actually want to have it further the plot. And the only reason they included that line that said, "Oh well, the color changing confused our computers," is to make it give the appearance that it actually furthered the plot. It was a ruse,
I think you're
a lie.
right. Again,
I have been tricked.
It is.
Because
it seems
it didn't
to
make
me
it. I couldn't put it all together.
it's because this is the most kids show version of this TV series thus far.
It's like it didn't
I know
have to make
advertised to kids, but this logic didn't make any sense, and they were like, "Let's have colors. Let's have a disease that's crazy colors."
Yeah, it just threw out complications with no connections.
Yeah, it's totally nuts.
And
Okay, I think it's time for a break.
Ooh,
Absolutely.
Isaac says it's time for a break, so
Belay that, Lieutenant.
we will do that, and then we will conclude our discussion of Albatross and begin.
I wish I had that Monty Python clip. Albatross.
Albatross. Yeah,
I don't have that.
Well, we'll begin our discussion of how sharper than a serpent's tooth. We will be right back. Okay, we're back. We have returned. Do you have Kirk saying, "Is this some kind of joke?"
This is some kind of joke?
And then, do you have?
This is some kind of joke?
Do you have a?
I'm not joking, Lee.
Yeah, there we go. Excellent, thank you. I just
Egg
needed.
salad.
Well done.
I needed that for myself. Okay.
This is some kind of joke?
I'm not joking, Lee.
Okay, that's actually unknowingly you have created a brilliant segue to my next point, which is we've talked about how much we love the music in TAS. It's really great. We know it's repetitive. It's really, but it's really great. It's evocative. It's fun. I will say, this being the anti-penultimate episode of the entire series,
Anti-penultimate.
the constant music is starting to grate on me.
Yeah.
Like, when this episode popped on, I was like, ugh.
I think they even began with the end music at the beginning of the episode.
It was weird.
I think it was that one. Okay, I have a question.
They had a lot of weird arrangements and clear cuts, like where they edited stuff together, like and mashed it together weirdly.
Is this from TAS or TOS? This one. I can't remember if that's TOS or TAS or TOS.
Could be both, but it's definitely TAS.
Okay, because listen to this real carefully.
I know what you're going to talk about. I know what you're going to play.
At the very end of this,
I just want everyone to know that I know what Dan's going to play.
You ready, Jesse?
I'm ready.
They play that,
but without the dun. Dun. Yeah, without the bloop.
The stinger is from a cartoon. It makes it a cartoon.
What?
That's interesting. They play it. They play it.
What's the deal with this creepy laugh? This creepy laugh at the end of this episode. Anyway, what's the deal with that? Why are they doing that? Why are they doing that?
Did these two episodes like get the series canceled? Is that what happened?
Decidedly.
I don't know. I mean, they only did 6 episodes in the second season.
That's why they cut it short.
Kangaroo court. Kangaroo court. Kangaroo court. You mean kangaroo court?
Is this episode the source of the Kirk hand to mouth meme, and not the Kirk ass to mouth? The Kirk hand. You know what I'm saying? There's that picture of Kirk where
I'm
he's
not
like,
joking, Lee.
where he's holding his hand up to his mouth. I don't know, because the thing is they do reuse stuff in TAS.
Yeah.
But I can't remember if I've seen it before in TAS. Like, it jumped out at me. Regardless, it jumped out at me once or twice in this episode where Kirk is kind of going like, oh my.
Yeah. That's a good question. I didn't even think about that. There was one line
It's okay if you guys don't have the answers. I can just toss it out there. You know, people can write us at feedback@itsgotstartrek.com.
There was one line where they were talking about leaving subspace comms. I thought that was the point of subspace, is that they always had access to it. Can you leave?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I caught that too. I think that was the equivalent of saying we're out of communications distance, but
and then there was the whole like. They left the cargo bay open, like Deimos was just like not at all suspicious of like that the cargo bay. I've been tricked.
I have been tricked.
But I did like the whole. But I did like this is the part where Kirk was. I think this was when Kirk was like,
yes.
I think that because Uhura was like, but the hangar doors. He said this is what he goes. He goes, he'll probably prefer to sneak aboard, seeing that we carelessly left the hangar doors open. And then Uhura says, but the hangar doors aren't open, Captain.
Yes.
And then he says, take care of that oversight, will you, Sulu? Yeah. That was a word switcheroo. I kind of dug that because he didn't specifically say open the cargo bay doors. He said
open the pod bay doors, Hal.
He said fix that problem.
Yeah.
And
he said won't someone rid me of this troublesome priest? Turbulent priest, if we're gonna mean
turbulent juice.
Turbulent juice.
Because he said we carelessly left it open, and Uhura was like, no, we didn't. He's like, oh yeah, fix that, please. Yeah. Which means he was really saying open it up, but he wasn't specifying. So if he had to write a Starfleet report on it, he could say that he never ordered the bay doors open. He was just like, fix the issue.
You could put anything in
the issue was that they were closed and needed to be open, but he made it seem like the issue was that they were open and need to be closed.
Yeah.
All he was saying is toggle it, make it whatever it isn't now. And fix it. And that was a sneaky way for him to open the door to trick Deimos. I thought that was sneaky. I like that part.
But
it was a dumb trick.
It was a very dumb trick because Deimos is clearly a moron.
Yeah,
I have been tricked.
And, not the most enchanting place I've ever been to.
Then they go down to.
Real quick, I was just going to mention Kirk also had like a weird smile after Deimos said he'd been tricked. It's like he says he's been tricked. Kirk has a weird the smile where the teeth don't have any. They're not individual teeth. It's just like he's wearing some kind of weird dentures.
Or he has like orange peels in his mouth and painted white. You know when you put the orange peel in your mouth during soccer practice?
And you went specifically during soccer practice.
Yeah. Now, were we introduced to a new bit of lore? The idea that high levels of radiation can make transport too dangerous? Because they were talking about they were talking about the Aurora had high levels of radiation. I'll find the line precisely. It was the historical records. Mostly they're technically.
That's not precise.
Okay, here it is. That's. Aurora reported in the sector, however. Kirk says
Aurora?
Kirk says Aurora reported.
Nothing to do with this.
Aurora reported. Rotisserie Aurora reported. Rotisserie Aurora reported. Aurora reported in.
Are you about to start some clever rhyme? Some sort of
to which Kirk says,
rhyme? You said you weren't going to freestyle.
They're referring to the Aurora, and Kirk says, radiation level, Mr. Sulu. And Sulu says, intense, Captain. And Spock goes, decidedly non-lethal, however. That's the part where he says...
Decidedly non-lethal, however.
And then Kirk says, good, then it's safe for us to beam down to Dramia 2, shall we, gentlemen? And then Scott's like, you sure it's safe? And then Kirk's like, he goes...
Absolutely.
And then Spock goes...
You're sure it's safe, Captain?
Oh, Scotty said that. That Spock goes...
Decidedly, there's a difference, Captain.
So it's saying that they're not sure if it's safe enough to transport down because of the radiation from the Aurora.
No, I disagree.
Yes, the Aurora was causing...
I interpreted it a different way.
How did you interpret it?
We are now at odds again. We were together for a little while. The way I interpret it, and I think it's the best way to interpret it.
Oh my God, of course you would say that.
Yes, of course.
The point is,
I'm pushing my opinion.
No, you should be pushing for the objectivity of truth. Not for your own.
What?
No, not for your own glory.
No, we live in a post-truth
That's
world.
not how it works.
I'm making excuses.
No, my point is that when I listen to that dialogue, it has nothing to do with the act of transporting. It's, do we want to transport down into a dangerous radiation soup? It's the same thing as saying, like, do you want to transport into a cave that's unstable after an earthquake? They're like saying it's safe on the surface, so yes, we can beam down.
You're gonna lose.
Not the radiation is interfering with the transport. At least that's how
Unfortunately,
I interpret it.
we're out of communications range.
I interpret it as the space around, the space between the ship and the planet.
Space between.
Hey, look, you made your point. Let me make my point.
Yes.
I'm interpreting it that
Let me finish.
I was interpreting it that the space between the Enterprise and the planet had so much radiation that it would damage the molecules as they transported through it. That's how I interpret it.
Which I think is perfectly reasonable. I just don't. That's not what I took away from this particular exchange. I would buy that.
Exchange.
I would buy that though. To me, there's all sorts of things that can interfere with transporters, like ion storms and all that other business. Ion storms. What, kids, don't go out in the ion storm. It'll fuck you right up.
Okay, so they go down to the planet.
Not the most enchanting place I've ever been to.
Which is a fucked up thing to say when you go down to like a planet ravaged by plague, you know? And,
and Deimos, I don't know if you have this clip, but I really like this line where he says, "Plagues seldom leave behind fields of flowers, Captain."
No, I don't have that.
That was a weird. It was a weird thing to say, but it was poetic.
Yeah, I should have recorded that. The closest one I got was
the distinction here is between the world of the living and the world of the walking dead.
World of the Walking Dead. No, you're right. That was a good line. I enjoyed that line too. So, so they
plagues often leave behind flowers.
So some Demarian like ran off, and for some reason they were like, we got to follow that guy. We don't know why they.
You mean the cave guy that's all like,
I dream me into it.
It's such a ridiculous scream. And it wasn't a Wilhelm scream. It was like a good old-fashioned, this is just a ridiculous scream.
Dream.
But so like why did they chase after that? Like I guess they were looking for answers, but it wasn't really clear why they were chasing them. And then they went into that crevasse.
And then there's this other guy who shows up.
Yeah, then Coltai shows up when they go into the crevasse, and both Spock and Deimos are like, "Don't go in there." And then Kirk's like, "But what about Bones, guys?
What about Bones?"
And so Bones is meanwhile being all honorable, being like, "I don't know, it just fucked me up, maybe I deserve it."
Yeah, right.
Which I'm that's cool. I get where they're going at, but I don't know. It's just kind
of. And Spock tried to break him out, but he was like, "No, man, I deserve."
So part of what made this frustrating is you're not clear. It's not clear what the audience is supposed to think at any given time. Ray the situation with Bones, right?
Bones.
Because it starts out suggesting that what the Dramonians are accusing McCoy of, initially it sounds more like negligence. It's like, we're arresting this guy because he came in and whatever he was doing, he thought he was helping, but he fucked everything up. But then like very rapidly it switches to be like, no, the implication was he did this on purpose because he wanted to murder us. And that doesn't make any sense. There's no evidence to suggest that. It's confusing.
Evidence!
So that's weird. And then like McCoy is all like, I don't know, maybe I did fuck him up somehow. And it's like, okay, but why would you think that? Other than the fact that there was a plague, and why would you think that in a criminal guilt sense, as opposed to saying maybe there, verbalizing, maybe there was something weird in the inocular contaminant or something, and I feel bad if that's the case, but that's not the same thing as actively murdering people.
Well, when they were in the cave, Kirk was like, "There's cave dwellers here," and then Deimos was like,
"Cave dwellers."
Deimos was like, "A result of your Dr. McCoy and his inhumane methods." Right. Yeah. So it kind of turns like at some point without warning, it just kind of turns from like what you would assume, like you just said, to be negligence to like he was actively trying to fuck them up or something, and that's when it turned to like man who saves doesn't also kill. And it was just like switched around the intentions to make that logic, which never makes any sense in any situation. The man who saves doesn't kill. Yeah. It was attempting to make that make more sense because the guy was like, McCoy fucked us up because he's an asshole, and then essentially Coltai was saying, no, a good guy is not an asshole. That's basically what he was trying to say, but they used weirder words that didn't really didn't fucking put anything together right. It was fucking ridiculous.
And we already discussed most of the resolution to the episode of, they figure out the colors magically somehow. It doesn't entirely make sense. I still don't totally get it. And then they're totally cool with the whole jailbreak thing and everything. They immediately are like, oh, now we're gonna give like McCoy like an award for helping us out.
And this part, the General Order 6 part was
Order 66?
This part was comical to me because like they had Sulu go through the whole thing.
General Order 6 has been activated?
Yes, sir. If everyone on board has perished at the end of 24 hours, the ship will self-destruct in order to protect other beings from the disease on board.
Good.
Good. You stretched that exposition out because this episode clearly ran short. Did you notice how many very long ship flying around shots they had? And I think what you just played of Sulu is another example of them stretching the fuck out of this slim story.
Because Sulu's already having a hard enough time as it is. Why would Spock like put him through like trying to recite General Order 6? Like why wouldn't Spock
You're
just
my exposition boy?
If all Sulu had to say was yes, I know it, or if Spock felt like it needed to be repeated, why didn't he just repeat it instead of making him like crawl through this fucking like mush of words?
I do think another thing that jumps out in this episode
I'll pour on the coal, Captain.
And you hear this sometimes as you're watching through TAS, but you can really tell that some of these people recorded not only at different times, but seemingly in like different locations. Like some of the Shatner recordings sound like he's in a completely different fucking planet, even though he's standing right next to the other people talking. It's something that pops up from time to time on
some of the sounds
on TAS.
Well, there was because there was at one point this one you can kind of hear a buzz in the background.
I demand that you report to the Federation now.
Yeah, because they're just recording it in his office. He's sitting at his desk smoking a cigar. Popping some Black Betties.
Black Betty's, Bam-a-now.
Yes, Bam-a-lam.
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 There was about a 15-20 second period there where it was like there was an audible buzz, a recording buzz, and it wasn't like it wasn't ship buzz. It was just like bad recording.
It was Lou Scheimer's dictaphone machine.
Dictaphone,
which he'd forgotten to turn off in the background. All right,
well, let's.
Lou Scheimer's
we do need to move on to the next episode. Any closing thoughts, highlights, bimbops, billy boops?
There was
vitamin rations.
This whole thing.
Hippocrates would not have approved of lame excuses, Doctor.
Hippocrates nuts.
Lame excuses.
Super weird. Like,
lame.
What a weird thing. What a weird thing for Spock to say.
Yeah. Okay, then 2 different pronunciation alert. This is Spock's.
Saurian virus antibodies in your laboratory.
McCoy.
Saurian virus antibodies in his blood.
Saurian virus antibodies in your laboratory.
Saurian virus antibodies in his blood.
Saurian virus antibodies in your laboratory.
You hear the difference?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Saurian virus antibodies in your laboratory.
Saurian virus antibodies in his blood.
Orange mocha frappuccinos.
Yes, indeed.
And then there's a duty moment.
Well, you have been derelict in your duties of late, Doctor.
There's a duty moment. I'm not going to play a fart sound because I'm not going to do that.
You're refraining this week from the farty farts.
Refraining.
I had one last thing on this episode was I did find it really amusing that McCoy said he was a doctor, but like nothing else. He's like Jim, I'm a doctor.
Yeah.
I'm a doctor. He didn't say like I'm a doctor, not a something.
Oh right, yeah.
He was just like I'm a doctor.
And what?
It was like you're leaving us hanging. I'm wondering if that was on purpose.
That's friend Demos.
I thought that was a really awkward line.
Friend Demos.
That's friend Demos.
That's friend Demos.
That's friend Demos.
San Demos.
Meet cold tide, Mr. Scott. Take care of that oversight, will you, Mr. Sulu? That's friend Demos.
It's just such a weird way of referencing a third person.
It says weird shit.
It really is.
Anyway.
It really is. All right. So, with that.
Thank Mr. Spock, too, and Captain Kirk.
With that.
And Captain Kirk.
McCoy gave Spock some credit this episode.
Yes.
Anyways.
He
never does that.
How sharper than a serpent's tooth? Let's move right along home to How Sharper Than a Serpent's Tooth. The penultimate episode of Star Trek, the animated series, which aired on October 5th, 1974.
All of your kind shall perish.
Say what now, Jesse?
It won an Emmy.
Did this one win an Emmy?
Yeah.
Even though it was all like racist and shit?
It was the 70s.
So
okay, what did it really won an Emmy?
Yeah, that's what I read.
So it was interesting because they were talking about how this Kukulkan, sorry.
Say that again?
Kukulkan.
Hold on.
Come along, you belong, feel the fizz of
Kukulkan.
Sorry. You know what that is?
Do
you know what that is originally?
What is that?
All right. So this is from Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, the episode, the cult episode, where there's a cult that's into a drink called Cuckoo Cola. Here's the original.
Come along, you belong, feel the fizz of Coca-Cola.
That's
cool.
I don't know how many.
Is that the TV show Rescue
It's the
Rangers?
TV show Rescue Rangers.
That's a pretty catchy tune.
Well, that's the thing is it's been stuck in my head ever since, and then you go back and watch that episode as an adult. You can go check it out on Disney Plus if you've got it, and you realize it's an analogy for a cult because like the local mob is like using a soda cult. They've developed a cult around this soda, Cuckoo Cola, and you're like, oh, it's cuckoo, like it's attracting cuckoo people, or it's making people cuckoo. Anyway, I thought of that when they kept saying Cuckoo Clan.
Well, it was also funny because this is another pronunciation alert.
Kukulkan.
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 It's like you saying
Kukulkan.
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 Kukulkan. Kukulkan.
Kukulkan.
Kukulkan.
Kukulkan.
Kukulkan.
Kukulkan. But why would Kukulkan want to destroy us? Kukulkan must have visited several ancient peoples.
Kirk kept stubbornly pronouncing it Kukulkan.
Okay, there's a story behind that. Would
Okay.
you like to know the story? I found it out.
Tell us the story.
In my research.
Was it an example of what you were talking about before, where they recorded in different locations at different times without communicating with one another? Did the script change or something?
No.
No.
You can keep asking me yes or no questions, and we can see if we can get at the story that way.
I cannot explain it.
Okay, so first of all, I think it's important to note that Kukulkan is an actual mythological creature, right? From lore. So that's they're not pulling that completely out of their asses.
Yeah, I've heard of that shit.
But I'm going to explain a little bit about the writing process in a bit. But since you brought it up, it was funny to learn that, at least according to Memory Alpha, that the writers were there on the day when most of the people were recording their lines, but Shatner recorded his lines separately and on another day, and the writers didn't happen to be there that day. So nobody was there to correct him on his pronunciation. So they were simultaneously annoyed that he says it wrong the whole time, but they also thought it was kind of funny. Because
Kukulkan.
Yes, the Shatner version.
Kukulkan. Kukulkan.
He says it every single time. He says it that same wrong way. He's saying the same way, but it's the wrong way.
Kukulkan. Kukulkan.
The real historic mythological cultural name of Kukulkan.
Kukulkan
said Walking Bear.
Yes, so that's the story.
So Kukulkan is Mr. Walking Bear, right? That's
Opinion, Mr. Walking Bear.
Yeah. So Kukulkan is Mayan, but they also say that it takes in the episode says we also have influences from basically Kirk says we'll be dealing with the basis of all of the legends. Basically, Kirk was saying Kukulkan is actually like every single religion we have, except notably missing is Christianity. Yeah, well, but they have Egyptian, Mayan, Egyptian, Native American, Chinese legends. But of course, they ignore the Christianity one because that would probably be a little bit too controversial to mention that.
But you know, interestingly enough, Dan, remember in the in the one with the Satan when they went
to the middle of the universe? Is that what where they did magic?
In the middle of the galaxy,
there was magicians.
They were fighting the Puritan Christians. And they were on the side of Satan, of Satan.
But historically, Kukulkan is just Mayan, right?
Yes. So here's the deal, and I think it helps to know some of the background of this episode. And the first thing I will make an editorial comment that I don't think this is not original to me. This is what many people think about this episode, is that it represents in many ways that classic attempt of white people they want to do the right thing. And they don't realize that their help is not needed. In this case, The writer, there were two writers on this episode. It was Russell Bates and David Wise. All right. And
do you know what his butler calls him?
Did you say butt?
You know what his butler calls him?
What does his butler call him?
Master Bates.
Oh, okay. You know, it's late. I didn't even begin to get that.
Master Bates.
Yeah, no, I should.
I am your master.
So
Bates.
Master Bates.
Russell Bates.
Master Bates.
Russell Bates is a person of Comanche heritage. So he's a TV writer.
I am a Comanche captain.
And he is a full Comanche. And so Dorothy Fontana, DC Fontana, went to, okay, first of all, he had been writing ideas. He was trying to get a script onto TAS for a long time. And he had some weird obsession with parasites. He kept writing variations on stories about parasites. He had this obsession with parasites. And more specifically,
the most ingenious parasite.
He was in love with the title The Patient Parasite because he kept like turning in scripts that were called like The Patient Parasite.
Weird.
And I guess he likes alliteration, and the idea of a patient parasite is kind of hilarious. You can imagine how that could be a Star Trek story. But anyway, they kept not buying his particular stories. He kept submitting stuff because he was eager to do that. He was I think had worked with Gene L. Kuhn, who was one of the main producers on TOS. So anyway, that's the background. He's trying to write for Star Trek. They're not taking his stories. DC Fontana is like, yeah, I want you to write a story, but like about your heritage. I want an American Indian, an Aboriginal American, a First Peoples story. She wouldn't have used those terms, but that's what she wanted. And he was kind of like, I kind of just want to write a sci-fi story. Like, can I write a story that's not necessarily about my whatever? Eventually he got into it though, and they paired him with David Wise, and David Wise was like, yeah, look, let's pick some cool stuff and we'll write a story around it. So that was the seed of this. But the problem is you immediately get into the thrust of this story being kind of like the fucking ancient alien bullshit where it's like, okay, we're going to say that all these people are not clever enough to have come up with this stuff on their own. They had to be influenced by an alien. And they think by saying that everyone did that they're being like nice. They're like, well, we're not singling out the Mayans or whatever. We're saying everyone needed help. And it's like, yeah, dude, like, no, aliens didn't help build the pyramids and give the Mayans their calendar and stuff. I got where they were trying to go with it.
But I mean, that's not uncommon for like any kind of sci-fi. It's happened a few times in Star Trek where someone visits a planet that's I don't know whatever you want to say developmentally, however you want to rate that. I don't know what the proper word for that is, but saying like if you're from thousands of years
like a less sophisticated,
less
right, technologically sophisticated
and then they leave the planet and they come back. They go through time 1,000 years from now and they find suddenly they're gods on that planet. Yeah. That's not a new idea.
No, so and it works great when it's aliens on an alien planet, like in Blink of an Eye or something like that, where you've created like that. That's the best kind of sci-fi where out there you craft a scenario that you can examine things like the Ferengi with their greed or the Klingons with their warlikeness or honor. The trouble people have with this episode, and by the way, similar episodes on TOS, TNG, etc., is that they're looking at specific actual cultures, and it is kind of insulting to suggest it's like, oh, the grand accomplishments of your ancient culture. Yeah, it was this snake monster who came.
Well, I think it would have been. Okay, no, I see what you're saying, and it's true.
It's a cute idea, but it's that it's real people that is the issue.
One of the problems, though, is like I was saying before, is they didn't include Christianity in that whole thing.
I agree.
That's a huge problem with that
adds
thing.
to it. But even if they didn't, even if they said every single thing, and they kind of try to imply it here, but like you said, in a safe way. But honestly, even if it was everything, again, I understand this is 1974. This is what they're trying to do. They think that they're like, oh, let's elevate some of these stories of these other cultures because we don't want to be focused on Western white culture. Yeah, but in the end, you're telling a story that says like it's aliens that help you people. So a lot of people were not cool with this episode over time. I think it's where you learn the lesson, which is like, yeah, you can do this exact same story, transplant it to something that's not actual cultures. And you're not implying things about actual cultures, and then the story works better.
I was angered because I believed you had forgotten me. I have been alone all my life.
He's just lonely too. Apparently he's a lonely god.
Just like in the first episode. I'm so lonely.
It was weird because he's the lonely god, and so his solution was to capture different creatures and put them in some kind of VR stasis or something. And somehow that was keeping him company. To me, it seemed like he was collecting trophies, right? Because he was collecting these creatures and putting them in this super like hollow land where they get to live like their happy hollow lives.
What would make it make sense to you? Do you think it would make sense if, I know they didn't show it, but do you think it would make sense if he enters their worlds as like creatures and like flops around and like parties with them?
Yeah, that would make sense because as it is, if he's just hanging around outside of their world, he's not making friends, he's collecting trophies. But if he goes in and parties with them, then I can understand. I don't see how what he's doing is going to decrease his level of loneliness.
And you know, you could almost take it as I'm sure this wasn't the case, but you can almost take it as like an analogy for like cat people, where it's like the person who gets like 18 cats and is like not hanging out with people. And they're like, I don't need to hang out with people. I got my cats.
I got my cats.
You know, and he literally had a cat.
Takes me all day to change their litter.
He had a kombuchan power cat. What was it called?
Capellan.
The Capellan Power Cat. 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 Power Cat. Power Cat. Power Cat. Power Cat. Power Cat. Power.
Yeah, that was
Capellan Power. Capellan Power. Capellan Power. Capellan Power. Power Cat. Power. Capellan Power Cat. Power. Power Cat. Power. Capellan Power Cat.
Power cat.
This is a Capellan Power Cat.
A duck.
This is some kind of joke.
I'm not joking, Lee.
Power. Capellan Power Cat. Power Cat. The Capellan Power Cat. Capellan Power Cat.
A duck.
The French.
Okay, look, we gotta take a break.
Sabotage.
We gotta take a break. We gotta take a break. Gather ourselves a little bit here. And when we return, we will conclude our discussion of how sharper than a serpent's tooth. Be right.
Power Cat.
Be right.
Capellan Power Cat.
Hello, we are back from commercial break.
The violence of your kind surpasses even that of the power cat.
The cat's last power jolt clipped me.
What the devil is going on?
It's just like a big kitten.
All right. So, a couple things to walk through. First of all, I'm just kind of looking at my notes here. First of all, I have a note that says fish eagle snake. When we first see this thing, I was like, "What the hell is this?"
Oh yeah, well, okay.
It's really more like an eagle snake thing. And when you look up Kukulkan,
you mean
Kukulkan?
There is some awesome art, both ancient and modern depictions of Kukulkan.
So it's twice the size of the Enterprise. It's composed of crystalline ceramic, which is weird. I don't know what that's supposed to be all about.
It's like the crystalline entity.
And it puts them in a force globe space bubble thing.
Oh yeah. And I like how they kept saying fucking force. It was like a force globe that can absorb any force.
It is a force globe.
Yeah.
That can absorb any force.
We have been encased in a globular force field, Captain.
Globular.
It is a force globe.
It's a force field.
He says globular instead of globular.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Force globe. Force globe. The force globe limits our maneuvering. The whole thing at the... so I guess I'm sort of jumping around here because you were going to make a point yourself, weren't you? But the whole resolution to the force globe thing, it just seemed like kind of like the writers were just sort of making up like excuses to move the plot along because they were, for some reason, the Spock goes, the force globe is flexible in only one direction per unit of time. We shall both push and pull on it simultaneously. It should become rigid enough for a burst of warp power to shatter it. Like,
I know, like what are you talking
okay,
about?
sure, like, why? Like, it's just like, okay, like, that resolution came after they introduced this idea of the force globe, and at the end, they just made up this rule. It's like when you play, as a kid, when you play, like, a game with that asshole kid on the street who would keep making up rules along with, like, as he was playing the game to win. It's like the writers were just making up the rules as they went along. It's like, this globe freezes people, and at the end, it's like, oh, by the way, Spock figured out that if you move it forward and back at the same time, per unit of time, it somehow shatters it. It's like really convenient. It's like saying like there's a box made of space slime that can be dissolved with pee. You're like, it's like You can just say anything, you know? It's like, here's a magic bubble. The way you destroy the magic bubble is by spinning your butt around. It's like, oh, of course, you know?
Spin the buns.
It's just there were no rules to that plot.
Well, there are no rules and a lot of coincidences, which it's okay to have a little bit, but it does get a little bit troublesome when it's too much. Like, yeah, they just happen to have Lieutenant Walking Bear on board who was able to
Mr. Walking Bear.
Yeah, he said Kukulkan is Kukulkan.
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 Ensign Walking Bear is correct.
And so I guess they were lucky that he was on board.
Yeah,
because
right. I know.
Presumably the Kukulkan was going to murder them all, or not, or I mean, you know, it's like that's certainly what we're meant to do. And it's like, okay, yes, I get it. The plot wouldn't have happened without that. But again, it feels forced. It's like if you want to have inclusion that is based off of exclusion, which is based off of circumscribing people as like, you're that person and you're going to represent that person and the plot's going to surround you and you're going to be voiced by James Doohan. You know, it's that sort of thing that I think jumps out a little bit that maybe the people in the 70s didn't pay as much attention to. Although I bet some of them did. I bet some of them were like, eh.
The ship was like, okay, from the front, it looked like some kind of mustachioed mask from the front, but then it like, for some reason, it morphed into a snake. I don't understand why it bothered. Why did it bother being a ship when it warps into a snake?
Answer.
You know the answer.
I learned this in my review of the behind the scenes lore.
Okay, I would be interested to know that.
I didn't know this prior to
What the devil's going on?
To learning. I was about to say one of the stupider things I've ever said. I didn't know this prior to learning it.
Good heavens.
It's a true statement, but it's a dumb statement.
We should have been smashed.
Apparently, in the original script, they wanted the ship to look like the snake monster, right? Or to be the snake monster, whatever. But basically, it was going to be a big ship shaped and looking exactly like the snake monster, like Kukulkan. And they said that when they write the script and they send it up and people review it and stuff, and eventually Gene Roddenberry reviews it, and they said one thing that was positive about working on this episode is they only got 2 notes from Gene Roddenberry. And one of the notes, one of the notes was they originally had the ship, like I said, looking like the snake monster, and Roddenberry was like, "That's stupid." He thought it was too arrogant. He said it would be too arrogant to have like a spaceship that looked like you. He was like, he thought like Kukulkan would not be so arrogant to have a spaceship that looked like him.
Oh, come on!
So wait a second. So that means he turns into a spaceship? Why wouldn't he just live in the spaceship?
No. Look, he lives in the spaceship. That's where most of this stuff
he morphs from a spaceship into a Kukulkan.
No. See, that if you look closely, and again, I would not have gotten this if I had not actually read this. But when you read this and then you watch it, you're like, okay, they made a compromise with Roddenberry. Roddenberry was like, the ship can't look like the snake guy because that's crazy and arrogant. So they said, how about if the ship uses like instead of a cloaking device, it's like a holographic, like make it look like a snake monster device. And so if you look closely when it morphs into snake monster, you can actually still see the ship in there, and they make it clear that it's like an illusion projected, for lack of a better term, onto the ship.
So the snake monster is approximately the same size as the ship, though.
It's not a real snake monster. That's the projection. And the snake monster inside the ship is the real snake monster.
So there's a smaller snake monster inside the ship, and the ship makes it look like a snake monster
through holographic projection. They don't state it's holographic.
Holograms?
Yeah.
Like, why would they do that, though? Why would it bother?
Because that was the compromise with Gene Roddenberry and the writers. Because the writers really wanted the image of the snake in space. They didn't want to lose that.
Isn't that the whole camel is an animal made by committee thing, where it's just kind of like they got together and they compromised to make something that doesn't really make a lot of sense in the end? Like,
I mean,
why would it?
It does make sense if you're in North Africa and have to travel some distance. The camel.
Yeah, but that's just, I didn't make that saying up.
No, I'm not criticizing you or the saying. I'm kind of, it's kind of a riff. It's kind of like a comedy riff.
But you made me feel bad. You made me feel like I was being intolerant.
I did not intend my comedy riff to make you feel bad. Not in this particular instance.
Enough!
But yes, as nonsensical as that might sound, that was what the deal was.
But yeah, okay, but the end result is something that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Why in the world would a ship project a snake around itself?
To look scary.
To look scary, yeah, I don't know.
Because again, the premise of this episode is that you have an alien creature who wanders around trying to help people, by yelling at them
and making him running guilt trips on him
and looking like a big scary monster.
He was fucking like he goes to the planet and he's all like
I was angered because I believed you had forgotten me.
He's like, you forgot me, okay? So first of all, he's being really needy. But the problem with him like saying you forgot me is it's not that they forgot him, it's that they just didn't solve his puzzle correctly. Because his puzzle
get the riddle.
He told him to make some shit and they made it wrong, and instead of being like, oh, they must have not figured out, he's like really insecure and it's like, oh man, they totally forgot about me, man. It's like, no, we just didn't figure shit out. We tried for like many years, but
I do like the idea of an advanced alien people coming and they leave like a fucking like jigsaw puzzle and they're like, solve this and it'll solve like all the mysteries of life, and then like after like a couple days the humans are like, yeah, fuck this, and they just never finish it. It's like the cure for cancer.
I have been alone all my life.
Just an old, lonely being who wanted to help others.
I wanted to know, why does Kukulkan sound like a 1970s bellicose stage actor?
I may do with you as I will. Where is your hate? You hate me, do you not? Why do you not speak to me of your hate?
But we don't hate you.
But we don't hate you.
There's that whole weird part. He kept talking about hate.
So Jesse,
he's like, you hate me.
Jesse,
why do you hate so much?
You were saying this episode won an Emmy. I didn't catch that. It's funny. I found all these other weird lore from the behind the scenes, but I didn't catch that it won an Emmy
for like a kids show.
Kids show Emmy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it won an Emmy for the very same reason that people criticized it. Was this did you find out what year it won the Emmy?
Well, presumably,
in the 70s.
Yeah.
So
this came out in 1974, so it would have been in 1975.
So back then they thought it was like really like progressive, but now we're finding it's not.
Well, I mean that's true of a lot of things back then. Again, there was an attempt to be made, and you know what? It's a fair argument to say that you have to do some. Maybe you could say some of the stumbling bullshit has to happen before you get to the real stuff. But another argument is like, hey, there's a better way to do this than reifying some existing stereotypes, because that's the other thing is there's a lot of
deify, don't reify.
Yeah, well, maybe do neither. Let's say don't deify or reify. Both things can potentially, depending on what you're talking about, be problematic.
Good heavens!
But there were a couple of like weird things, like for example, like when Walking Bear, when they're discussing all the different cultures.
Mr. Walking Bear, huh?
Walking Bear's like looking at what clearly looks to be like the entrance to Chinatown, and he's like, I don't know what culture that's from.
Yeah, that was weird.
And it's like, wait, what? And nobody's like looking at him like, what are you talking about? It's like Chinese dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that jumped out at me. But I gotta say, this episode is problematic, but there was some stuff in there that made it totally worth it for me. And one of them was when Kukulkan is like, behold, Kukulkan, and there's like cute goofy ass monster. Because he's all like,
yeah, right. And I love that. For some reason I love
with
that,
like a flower around his head.
And I love that the snake's mouth like moved like people mouth.
Yes.
Like it was really weird.
And did you notice how like every now and then it would do that thing that you see in a lot of modern cartoons?
Marvin cartoons? I shot Marvin cartoons in the face.
Why'd you shoot Marvin cartoons in the face?
Must have hit a bump or something.
The car didn't go over no motherfucking bump. Anyway.
You hate me, do you not?
But did you notice that the Kukulkan's eyeballs, like his pupils, would occasionally, like when emphasizing a point, they'd get all like big, almost like you're applying a bold to the font of the asterisk. It's like boop.
I know that he would hiss every once in a while.
So that was the first thing that I was like, ha, that's hilarious. Behold Kukulkan, he's all, that was hilarious. And then, no joke, I fucking lost it at the elephant creature with the 3 googly eyes.
Oh yeah, that we're all going in circles.
I literally couldn't handle that.
No,
I died.
It kind of
I died. I actually died.
It scared me in the same way that Large Marge from Pee-wee's Big Adventure scared me.
No, it scared me to death. I'm a ghost right now. This is my last podcast because this is my unfinished business. I'm a ghost, and my unfinished business is talking about this googly-eyed fucking elephant creature. Because when that
what the devil's going on?
When that came on the screen, I was like, I don't know. I can't do this anymore.
All of your kind shall perish.
They transported to a ship, but the ship looked like a completely blank planet.
Yes.
It was like
more hollow projection stuff.
Yeah.
Then
you think that's what it was?
Holograms.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Even if they don't say hologram, but like the implication is that I mean, Kublai Khan straight up says, I simulated all this, whether it's direct brain implant or whatever. That's probably what it is, you know, just like he did with the creatures. Once you pull out that little plug and then the creatures start flipping out, just like
we're dangerous.
Just like the Capellan power cat.
The Capellan power cat. Capellan power cat. Power cat. Power cat. Power. Capellan power cat.
Have you noticed that they've done at least a few things with goofy ass either giant cats or alien cats or weird cats? TAS has a lot of like cat stuff. So
yeah, there's a lot of cat stuff going on in TAS.
And I like.
I'm not going to complain about that.
No, I like this Capellan. I like that they went full on.
They went full on Capellan.
No, they just went full on. This is just acting like a normal cat, except it's got like some wavy lines around it. Like it's like when your cat gets all like static electricity and you put a balloon on it.
Well, apparently it's one of the fiercest creatures in the galaxy.
It didn't look like it. It looked like a regular old cat.
And the crew of the Enterprise, they just let it zip about somehow Kirk could take it on, even though it's one of the fiercest and most untamable creatures ever created.
He just slowly walks up to it and just goes like yoink, and just jabs it in his back.
It's in the whole galaxy. It's so fierce, and Kirk just like stabs at it, and they just let it run about. And I would say it's not the fiercest. I would say that the crystalline entity is more fierce than the Capellan power cat.
Well, it depends what you mean by fierce.
Well, that shit knocks out whole planets.
Yeah, but if I'm going to be like semantic with the English, fierce I think there needs to be a motivation. There needs to be an animus, an animated animus.
Well, the crystalline entity had a motivation.
Yeah, but as far as we know with the crystalline entity, it wasn't like emotional or anything. It was just going around feeding on shit. That's what I'm saying. It's almost like the Borg. The Borg, it's almost, that's just, they're doing what they're doing. Like a whale eats a billion krill. Fierce, I think to be fierce, you need to have like, I'm going to fuck you up.
Yeah, but
I don't think the crystalline entity has that. I do agree it's way worse than this fucking cat in terms of like the damage it'll do, because it just flies around and slurps up fucking whole colonies.
If it's so fierce, then what about?
It's just like a big kitten.
I guess that's the joke, though. That's the joke, is that they made it silly by desolting it.
And the animation.
Cat's last power jolt clipped me.
It's
Cat's last power jolt clipped me.
It's amusing to me when we watch these Filmation shows, TAS and other shows. The gag, of course, is how much they reuse animation and how simplistic a lot of it is. The eyes don't even have whites in them. You know, stuff like that.
That should actually that freaks me out every time that their eyes don't have whites in it.
That joke is that, we get, that's the case, except it's every now and then they do something beautiful. And it can be a beautiful background. It can be a beautiful silhouette shot. In this case, the animation on the fucking cat was almost like it was like the whole budget for like the rest of the season that they didn't get to shoot. They were like, let's animate this cat licking itself, like really cute. It's way better animation than any other stuff on this episode.
I wonder if they used any of the He-Man animation for their battle. They used some of the battle cat.
I think you're right.
They used the battle cat for the power cat.
Yeah, I think 100%.
The Capellan power cat.
They're reusing it, but to good effect, because it's like that was like really impressive.
Power cat. The Capellan power cat. Power cat.
Yeah, so it was I was into the cat. There are a lot of cat stuff. Cats are cool. I have two cats. What do you feel about the warp catapult effect? Spock says, warp engines on standby. Mr. Eriks, prepare to compensate for warp catapult effect. When we break free, we will be thrown approximately 5.698 light years.
That's so far.
That was in order to get out of in order to get out of the fucking...
The globular cluster.
It is a force globe. We've been encased in a globular force field, Captain. It is a force globe.
Forced globe.
The creature was the Mayan god from the ancient legends.
And the Toltecs Quetzalcoatl, the Chinese dragon, and all the rest.
And all the rest is like
Kukulkan.
All the rest reminded me of around this era,
Gilligan's
Island, where for the first few seasons it was just and the rest.
It was the Professor and Marianne.
Professor and Marianne were not included in the opening credits.
It was like and the rest,
and then these other two people,
and then they changed it to the Professor and Marianne here on Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, that was and it sounds much better. It it makes you think they went out of their way to not do it, because the music in the original version of the Gilligan's Island theme song sounds worse. Again, going back to that, the resolution of the musical phrase is not there with "and the rest." It is there with the Professor and Marianne.
So you like the Professor and Marianne better?
Yes, I think it's both more fair, more just, more egalitarian, and musically it flows better.
Capellan Power Cat.
Shakespeare. They do mention that this line, the line that makes the title, does come from Shakespeare, from King Lear, and Star Trek often uses quotes or paraphrases quotes from Shakespeare for titles or for lines of dialogue or even plot elements. Not a lot of King Lear, though. This is one of the few, if only perhaps, King Lear references. For those who aren't aware, King Lear, it's one of Shakespeare's best plays.
I just think it's funny that you took. I think it's funny you took note not only that it was from King Lear, but that there's not that many King Lear references in Star Trek.
Well, because King Lear is kind of a fucked up. It's fucked up.
It's fucked up.
What the devil's going on?
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. It's just something that jumped out because King Lear is about a king who divides up his kingdom to his 3 daughters, and all sorts of Game of Thrones type stuff results. It was interesting.
I recognize it.
Well, and they also have that quote, and the full quote is about like a shitty child or whatever, thankless child,
shitty child.
And so it's like, I don't know what the point is. I think it's one of those cases where they're like, hey, this is a cool quote. Let's include this cool quote.
Cool quote.
But the quote is
Quetzalcoatl.
The quote saying
cool Quetzalcoatl.
that Kukulkan was the parent figure of all these people. Again, is that what it's saying?
What was the quote?
How sharper than a serpent's tooth.
Oh, you're talking about the name of the episode.
The tongue of a thankless child. Or
how
like
sharper
that.
than a serpent's tooth it is to have a thankless child.
It is to have a thankless child. And so they're implying that the humans are the thankless children.
Yeah, but they weren't. They just didn't figure it out.
That's what I'm saying. Why would McCoy say this shit? Or was it McCoy who said it?
It was Kirk says, "Yes, Bones, I remember it." McCoy says, "I think I know how he felt, Jim. There's a line from Shakespeare." And then Kirk says, "Yes, Bones, I remember it." So that they both call it. Only Kukulkan thought they were thankless children. And the only reason he thought that is because they didn't spend enough time trying to figure out his riddle.
Yeah, I know. It's not even, and by the way, not even really a riddle. It was more like one of those newfangled puzzles.
It was like an
like a 3D puzzle.
It was an architectural task.
Yeah. It was like playing Myst. You have to like turn all the statues, or like Zelda, modern Zelda, where it's like turn the statues in a certain direction and that solves your problems. That was the whole answer, by the way. The whole answer to his mystery was just, turn the statues to the middle.
Oh yeah, man. And did Scotty not sound a little annoyed by that?
Aye, sir.
When he was like, Scotty, move that.
Aye, sir.
He sounds like, fuck this, because it didn't look too easy to move that thing.
No.
I will say I feel guilty about this, but I never got into Myst. I tried, and I just didn't enjoy it.
Myst was really hard.
Fucked up.
Well, it's not that it was hard that it bothered me. It just didn't keep my interest for whatever reason.
Did you play Seventh Guest?
Yeah, I did, but I think it's arguable that Myst is a much better game than Seventh Guest. Seventh Guest is just
I don't think people would debate that, but some people enjoyed Seventh Guest more.
Well, Seventh Guest was just a series of simple. Oh, not always. Some of them were tough, but Seventh Guest was just a series of puzzles put together with full motion video because CD-ROMs were all new. Yeah, Myst was actually a whole
CD-ROMs.
Myst was like a whole immersive world that I really respected. Myst a lot, and I like slow games just as much as fast games. For some reason, Myst never struck me, and I kind of want to play it again to see if I might enjoy it this time around.
You should do that.
Because I know it's a great game.
They made a new version where you can actually like wander around without point and click, but I'd only want to play the point and click one. I think.
Yeah, because
the original.
Yeah, because that it has its own like vibe that way.
It does have its own vibe.
Because not many games do that. So I was confused by the warp catapult effect. I don't know what that is. They were also at one point talking about spiral evasive course.
Oh no!
It just means they go like whoop, 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 whoop.
It says Spock. Spock says reverse engines and come about. Lay in spiral evasive course for Kukulkan's ship.
It's like you were saying. They're just making up a bunch of shit. And yeah, okay, we know often that's the case in Star Trek, but I think sometimes they put more effort into it. And maybe this is just the classic case of end of a second season of a probably going to be canceled, maybe already canceled show, and they're just like, fuck it, these kids, they'll eat up whatever.
Okay, here's the one. Walking Bear goes, then that city we were in wasn't really there. This was when Kukulkan summoned that city, and we found out, that it was
holograms.
And then Kirk says, even so, I would hardly call your city our natural environment. Yeah. And Kukulkan says, it was meant to be. That city and all else I taught to your ancestors, but they became evil, which is, first of all, kind of funny. It's like, what? They became at what point did they become evil? I don't know. Are we supposed to intuit that from history of humans?
I guess so. And who's to say he didn't cause that shit?
But yeah, right.
If they weren't evil before you showed up, and then you showed up, and then they became evil. Yeah. Not to make the same mistake as in the Albatross.
Yeah, right.
But hey, maybe you taught them the wrong things. Maybe they got so far. Maybe it was like a Gods Must Be Crazy thing. The movie The Gods Must Be Crazy, very famous South African movie about a Coke bottle getting thrown out of an airplane.
Yeah.
And a tribe, they previously didn't have any individual possessions. Now there's only one of a thing, and they fight over it.
Where would I stay?
Maybe that's what happened with Kukulkan, because he showed up and started talking about pyramids and other business, and people were like, "Oh, we should have agriculture, excess food, therefore a stratified society, and oppression." I think that's what happened.
Well, so Kirk says, the part where Kirk says, I would hardly call your city our natural environment, and Kukulkan says it was meant to be, and I wasn't sure. How was that meant to be their natural environment if it was all made up? I don't know. It was kind of I guess he meant that I wanted you to build it and to become your natural environment. But
exactly.
But like Kirk says, it wasn't our natural environment. It was a weird sort of exchange.
This is the classic.
It's like both their statements don't line up.
This is the classic person who shows up, gives a bunch of unasked for advice, and then comes back later and is like, why didn't you fucking follow my advice? It's like, dude, we're doing our own thing here. Right. Thank you. We took some of your advice, and we took the stuff that we thought would work for us. Anything else as we close down this conversation on this
obviously
wacky-ass episode?
Yeah, it was meant to be your natural environment. Obviously, it wasn't if it didn't become that. Anyway,
Jesse, any final thoughts on Kukulkan? Capuchin cats, power
and the
cats.
Toltecs Quetzalcoatl, the Chinese dragon, Capellan, and all the rest. Cat. But not
Kukulkan.
That's just pretty funny. As problematic as it was, I still,
Power Cat.
I enjoyed watching this episode. There is, of course, a reference. I can't remember now. In Lower Decks, they have a hologram or some sort of imaginary version of Kukulkan.
There's something.
Yeah, it was a fun callback.
We're dangerous.
So, all right, we're almost at the end of TAS.
Not quite, though.
Not quite. We have one episode left.
There's one duty moment.
Oh, in this episode, because there was a duty moment in the previous episode.
Or was there a duty moment?
Oh, it's going to be a debate 'em up. So Dan, for the Dan's prepping this, and while he's getting that ready,
it's ready.
All right, just so the audience knows, the deal is that Dan likes to identify when they say duty versus duty, and when they say duty, it's funny because it conjures images of feces and sort of colloquial terms for feces. So duty. Right. If they say duty, in Dan's view, that's not funny.
It's not funny.
That's just good regimented military structure.
Yeah, it was good writing, good pronunciation.
So now he's going to present us with something where I assume there's maybe some question.
Well, Albatross, the last episode, there was...
Well, you have been derelict in your duties of late, Doctor.
Obvious duty.
I think it's fairly much. That's on the duty side.
Yeah,
there's a little bit of a T, but I think that leans towards duty.
Now this is this episode.
Return to your duties.
That's obviously
very duty.
That is duty. That is not funny.
No, it is not funny at all.
Not funny. This.
Well, you have been derelict in your duties of late, Doctor.
Very funny.
There's also hilarious music playing in the background, very lightly, but
to help us realize it's very funny. This.
Return to your duties.
Not funny at all. Jesse, you think that's funny?
I do not think that is funny at all.
Good. Then we're on the same page here.
Okay.
Capellan Power Cat. Capellan Power Cat. Capellan Power Cat. Capellan Power Cat.
Power Cat.
This is a Capellan Power Cat.
The violence of your kind surpasses even that of the Power Cat.
It's just like a big kitten.
A duck!
Okay, so that was How Sharper Than a Serpent's Tooth. That almost does it for our coverage of the animated series. If you're not aware, we've covered everything from the first episode of season 1 all the way through now. There's only one episode left, which we'll get to at some point in the future. But if you haven't yet, go back and listen to some of our coverage of the other shows. If you want to, you can go to our website, www.itsgotstartrek.com. I'll say that again, www.itsgotstartrek.com, because on the website, you can sort by series. So if you click on the animated series, then it'll only show you the episodes in which we cover the animated series. And I find them to be some of the most fun episodes of It's Got Star Trek. We usually have a really good, fun, happy time talking about it.
TAS?
Yes, and I think given the chance, the audience will generally enjoy those episodes. Even the super old ones that are old, funky, smelly, stinky old versions of It's Got Star Trek when we didn't know what we were doing. So definitely go check those out on our website.
Did you notice he was given a horror shit at one point? Spock was given a horror shit because
what was he saying?
He was bossing her.
Yeah, because she was like trying to figure out how to save the crew, and he was like, "Your job is to study the ship. Keep to your job."
I did not. That slipped by me.
Yeah, it was there. It was in Captain, security reports that Mr. Scott and Dr. McCoy have also disappeared. Wait a second. No, that's not it. Shit.
All right. Well, while you're getting that together, I will continue with
here it is.
With the end matter.
Mr. Spock, shouldn't we be trying to find out what became of the captain and the others? And then Spock goes, Lieutenant Uhura, you are supposed to be monitoring the alien vessel. Our first priority is to free the Enterprise and ourselves. Return to your duties, which is...
Return to your duties.
That
got a case of the supposed.
Case of the supposed. All right, and I've got a case of the supposed to be finishing this podcast.
There was one last thing.
Okay.
When McCoy goes, Spock, I wouldn't suppose that Vulcan has legends like those, referring to Kukulkan and such. And Spock goes, not, and he goes, not legends, Doctor, fact.
Nah.
And
when
Vulcan
was visited by alien beings, they left much wiser. Yeah. Spock being like, gods didn't teach the Vulcans, the Vulcan teach the gods.
Yeah. What a fucking asshole.
Yeah, I know.
Power cat.
Okay, so
I'm Spock, and this is my ass.
Next week, we actually, because our recording schedule is a little goofed up this week, so we
got a case of the goof-em-ups.
We ran Dan's algorithm on last week's episode. Which is, by the way, the episode in which Grayson sent in a voicemail attempting to game the algorithm.
I'm sorry, Grayson, you're gonna have to try harder. That was a noble attempt, and I give you much respect. But
so if you listen to last week, Grayson was very cleverly using words and phrases to try to get the algorithm to select TNG's parallels.
Remember that titles don't count towards the algorithm.
Well, he didn't know that at the time. We explained that. So it did not. The algorithm did
unless they say the title in the episode.
It did not select parallels.
It's only what they say in the episode.
But it did select both Birthright Part 1 and Birthright Part 2.
Yeah.
So all the wharfing about, that worked. So
wharfing about.
If any of you would like to try to game the algorithm, you can send a voicemail to us, send an MP3, or go to itsgotstartrek.com/record.
But Grayson was a pioneer.
Yes, that's a great idea.
He forged a trail. So thank you, Grayson.
Again, so we ran the algorithm off of last week's episode, which was Precious Cargo from Enterprise, and the algorithm selected Voyager's Death Wish, which is a very well-known episode of Voyager.
Is Hoshi?
So that's what we'll be watching next week. So you can watch that in preparation for next week's podcast.
Which one is that again?
Death Wish.
Death Wish. Star Trek Voyager.
All right. So the things we have to go through at the end, of course, are feedback at itsgotstartrek.com if you want to send us something. I already did the /record, and I did the website. Social media at It's Got Star Trek, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, etc. And the new thing, of course, is that we have our Patreon. Patreon.com/itsgotstartrek. If you would like to, you may go sign up. By the way, you can sign up for free and see what's available there. And we do
sign them ups.
We have one free bit of content up there, and we
should have been smashed.
We'll occasionally put up some free stuff for everyone to look at there. But so you can sign up even if you don't want to pay the monthly fee. But if you do, you will get access to some extra silliness from Dan, Jesse, and Patrick here. and that we
It's
hope
on
you
the
enjoy.
rag.
And we're going to keep adding stuff
Good
as we go
heavens.
along. And we'd love to hear from you folks what you'd be interested in having hidden behind our little paywall there. Yeah, go. So you can write in or go on social media and let us know. But otherwise, we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
I go.
Bye-bye. I go.
Bones, what would happen if we pulled the cables on some of these cages?
Most of the animals would just lay there. Jim, the Capellan Power Cat.
Come on, Bones.